Welcome to Fact or Freestyle.
People love Dave Nourie, and they always answer the phone when he calls. When we get him on Zoom, we ask him to confirm rumors.
Let's see how far down the rabbit hole we go. There was a shaman and him that were gazing. They were like kind of the unseen and the unknown.
Do we have audio?
We do.
Oh,
Hey, Mark.
What's up, Dave?
Rad.
Not going to contests, not going to jams, not being able to talk about the stories and about.
All right. So this first segment, this is the Will It Ever Happen Again segment. There is a quote from a guy named Rumi who makes memes for motivational speakers. And it goes, everyone sees the unseen in proportion to the clarity of his heart. And that depends upon how much he has polished it. Whoever has polished it more sees more. More unseen forms become manifest to him. This is also related to how what they said of the Spanish conquistadors is they were approaching the land that only the shaman could see the boats.
Has either of you heard that theory before?
No.
Ruben?
I've heard a little bit about the shaman being the only one to see these gladiators coming in. They were so shiny to what they thought of it was a godly effect.
And that since they had never seen it, they couldn't conceive it in their minds. They've never seen it, so it was just not even there. And yet the shaman could see it.
We believe that this phenomena happened when plywood hoods started going to AFA contests because the parents who were judging them could not understand. But there were other riders who saw what was going on. In Flatland, is that ever going to happen again?
Let me weigh in on a couple things. There were some things in the early AFA days that were just basically stupid because of its infancy and whatever. And that is having people that weren't really necessarily riders judging. If you look back at who the quote unquote distinguished panel of judges were, at competitions that basically hinged our future, like the livelihood, like everything in our minds was riding on that at the time. Like that's what we have to remember.
Yeah.
The AFA was kind of like it dictated sponsorships, it dictated everything. And to be judged by people, just how can a judge know what they're even looking at? What do you know? It'd be like if someone would have done a run without brakes back then.
Yeah, you're right, man. It's a lot easier these days with the judges being there, did that, like gone through the moves and then go to the judging table. Because if you think about the AFA days, I mean, I knew a lot of those judges, man. They're BMXers, they raced, that got into running these events and stuff. And then they went national. They were judging more on appearance and whether you were having a good time out there flowing and all that. But like, do you even know how hard that is as in concept of making up stuff and then bringing it to the table at a big event like this? People didn't know what to think of Kevin and Eaton and Jerry Smith and Huddleston. Like, man, these guys were putting fucking shit down, dude. And somehow I ran into Mark Eaton and Kevin Jones, and they were going to a secret spot where all the Skyway dudes were riding in the industrial area in Carson, California. And I felt so very privileged to see, the unique styles that were about to blow the world away. Thankful these dudes are like, hey, you want to go ride with us over here? And the hype wasn't at the hotel. It was in this secret little dojo that doing the newest cool stuff. So I appreciate it. I don't think judges knew what the hell they were looking at back then.
What that phenomenon was, and if anyone really caught on to it, that you were like another one of the chosen ones. Like you were the one that, I like that you called it like the secret spot. And I feel like really the plywood hoods had that all in their grand scheme of things. Like at first I felt bad. I felt like, man, why aren't they getting the recognition that they should? They're doing like revolutionary tricks. I got to ride with the plywood hoods as well. It was somewhere, I think it was Columbus, Ohio.
It was actually before that, like actually in Dorking, New York. That's in the first video. There's a bunch of you riding there in that, and it's just like our own little jam session after the show.
When Joe was saying, well, maybe the plywood hoods had this in the grand scheme of things.
Jedi homing beacon.
No, there was never a plan. We were the least of planners. The only reason that things worked out the way that did, quote unquote, revolutionary tricks, is because we weren't able to go to every contest. So we were a few contests behind, and we were judging in our minds. We're like, okay, well, these guys are all doing this. So we can only imagine what they're doing now. Our expectation versus what the reality was greater. And it basically, we gamed ourselves, fooled ourselves by thinking.
Mark, you know, plus you and your brother and your homies, y'all have the B-boy mentality, which means if you battled one time before, the next time you came to the battle, if you did not have something else to top off that dude's last trick or last move,
there's that too.
That's your fault for not going into the battle properly. And that's the mindset that I had back in the day, and watching y'all come up too, man. It was always like, all right, who's got the
there's
new
a
gem,
battle
you know?
mentality.
Trying to go outdo myself, you know? You gotta stay fresh, homie.
Is that B-boy thing kind of keep you out of living the show life?
After the velodrome in '87, my brother got a job in Japan doing shows. The B-boy mindset was because me and my brother used to battle all the time in the garage.
Factor Freestyle. Ruben Castillo got ratted out by his brother for doing the same thing to him that James McGraw did to R.L. Osborne.
One day at dinner, my brother told my mom and dad that I was doing his tricks, man, and that I would go before him, and he would get mad because I would be judged first, and he would get mad that I was. So he did this at the dinner table, and since that day, I was like, all right, mofo, I'm gonna get you. So when he took off and went on tour, by the time he came back, he couldn't touch me. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna think of a trick that you'll never be able to do. Yeah, my brother lit that fire for me. Like you, Nourie, shit, we spent most of our youth cruising around the U.S. entertaining hillbillies, you know. And
what about here and now? Like, we know that the judges are qualified on a much better level. You've got top pro riders that are the judges, but I still wonder, will it ever happen again? That same scenario where someone, whether it was a Plywood Hood or whoever that came out.
One of the guys on Heresy is going to do it.
That one dude, his last name starts with a B, from France. He just looks like a ballet dancer. It's like so effortless and just beautiful to watch. His almost like reinvented the past 30 years all in one, with stalls to a complete roll-in pumping. And I think there'll be a new generation of seeds planted.
I think the thing that's hurting this thing is the access, and everyone, it would be very hard to not post. And basically, so someone has to be like underground. I mean, think of if Matthias didn't post anything for 6 months even.
Yeah, he's a freestyle master for sure.
All that would take is people being a little more low key, holding down, you know, they would be seeing everything that's going on. It needs a good reward.
Yeah. So what would that reward be? I mean, so one, he could walk into Voodoo Jam anywhere in that building he wants. He could take anybody's drink that he wants. He's just like untouchable. He can do anything. He takes your bike.
Maybe that's Rider of the Year. Maybe it's a whole new like category. Who came out the hardest?
Yeah, and only riders. Only riders can vote on it, and then whoever wins, anyone who votes agrees, they got to pay his parking tickets for a year.
As soon as he walks around, everybody just give him $1 or $5 right away.
Factor Freestyle. Brian Blyther's street name is Big Chicken.
I have a question. Who made up the tail whip flat ground? I'm just in the flat service. Who made up the tail whip?
Brian Blyther.
Big Chicken, right? Yeah, Brian Blyther, you're right. Big Chicken.
Factor Freestyle, the Jose Vendetta.
Story goes that Jose has a Super 8 film of him doing the tail whip that predates Brian doing the tail whip, because Brian did the tail whip for the first time when it was shot and put into the magazine Jose's Super Butthurt. However, because Rad was recently released in streaming, he's got some money, and so he's working to get the Super 8 redone. The last time he tried to take this vendetta out was to learn a backflip, to learn a trick that Brian would never learn. Apparently, Brian has never done a backflip.
Yeah, he has.
Oh, he has?
Yeah,
for sure. Well, this explains it.
Yeah, he toured with me in 96 through 8 with the GT Air Show. Man, it literally almost killed him, because he was just like so pissed off. He would kick his shoe off 30 foot in the air, and he's like, he ended up learning backflips, man.
Paris, California. Where do you learn it in foam
He
first?
learned it into water first, and then he just went for it in a show while we were doing entertaining. He's like, I'm just gonna fucking go for it. And a couple times he would just launch his bike and flip upside down, but he ended up pulling a few in front of me for sure. No, he's done them. I've seen it with my own eyes.
So now Jose thinks he's doing a tail whip on a motorcycle.
Rub it in Brian's face.
I would put a lot of money on that never happening. Ruben, you've been to Baldy Pipe. It's impossible. It would be. I wouldn't even think.
I think it's like a 12.
I don't know what he thinks he's doing.
Where
would you do a tail whip in Baldy Pipe? An air?
Oh,
a flat ground. A flat ground, but just that's the location of the flat ground motorcycle tail whip. The Travis Pastrana setup.
I still don't believe it because I don't.
Air.
I did too, because I still don't believe it because I don't think Jose has the skill to do a foot jam tail whip on a motorcycle.
That's gonna hurt.
My proclamation.
The other Factor Freestyle.
All right, Factor Freestyle. Joe Johnson had ants in his pants when he invented the vert tail whip.
Joe Johnson had ants in his pants when he learned the first tail whip, and they bit his taint, and that's how he learned.
How's it going?
Where did this come from?
We've got this email. He said that there was some older guy at his skate park, and he said, yeah, I know Joe Johnson, and he had ants in his pants when he invented the tail whip. He was working on it, but they bit him, and he twisted, and that was the huck.
Joe's first landing of the tail whip was in Wayne, New Jersey in 1988. It was just, it was like anything first time ever done, like Matt Hoffman's 900 and the two hip in Canada. He hadn't pulled him, so I don't know where that I'm going to debunk that story. It wasn't his first attempt. I think he tried it a few times, if I recall. I'm not positive, but there's a documentary about the New England scene. A Wicked Ride is what it's called. They completely explain the whole story from various people and Joe. They break down the tail whip air. So I know for a fact, and that would have been the spot where they would introduce that story.
Would they really have said, I guess the counterpoint is Joe Johnson would have to sign off on it.
Well,
and
he
would be, I mean, ants in your pants. Like when I was a kid, I kicked a stone and some ants actually bit me on my toe. Like I have first person. This happened to me.
You have first hand knowledge.
Very shocking.
Mm-hmm.
I took my pants off in the front yard to dust them off.
Hey Joe, just to make you feel better, when I was 7 years old, so yeah.
Well, I don't think if you're getting bit like that, it's in theory it might work, but in reality, you're not gonna just jump off your bike and get rid of it.
I have been doing tricks and I felt like a muscle tear or
anything completely derails you.
Sharp pain. Your instinct is to bail out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So if he did have ants in his pants, he wouldn't have completed it. He would have tossed it away.
Yeah. And they would have been ants in the leathers prior to the run, and prior to his pro AFA vert run.
Maybe he didn't wash his leathers and they're attracting ants.
Yeah.
Sugar. Maybe he spilled soda on his pants and they attracted in there.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of little nuggets.
We're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much. This is so great. You guys have been awesome. And I keep digging, Joe. Keep digging in. It's good. It's good info.